you can buy this vintage arcade game for $100. It's not working in this pinball machine. What's up, guys? Today on our little road trip, we are doing the Grand Canyon Caverns. We already got our tickets, we're already here, we're inside the gift shop, and we're just waiting for our tour to start in about 15 minutes. Sarah, do you need an old saw? It's $25. Hee hee. Apparently they have the world's largest dinosaur saddle here. This is actually pretty cool. They have translation seats. So they got Dutch, French, German, Japanese, Spanish, Italian, Chinese, Czech, Hebrew, Portuguese, Norwegian, Hindi, Polish, Korean, Russian, and Danish. Look at these cameras.
Alright guys, so as we enter the crystal room here behind me, just watch your steps on the trail and then watch your heads on the big rock formation above us. Also folks, the cavern here was discovered back in 1927. But when he made it down here, he was a bit excited because he had thought he found gold on the ceiling. But this here is just oxide of iron or just plain rust. Well, he also thought he found silver ore here on the wall, but this is a low grade of tin called considerite, and it would actually cost more to process into the tin than sell it, so it's a bit worthless. And then last but not least, he thought he found diamonds, which is basically the sparkly rock right here. And this here is a pressurized form of gypsum known as selenite crystal. And the crystals here are extremely fragile and again, worthless.
Tennessee, you talking about some coal mines? No?
No, not really. So that's the grotto.
But alright guys, so right now we're actually 206 feet below the surface, and this first room we're in is known as the Chapel of the Ages. But we did give it that name for two different reasons. Number one is because we have had 12 weddings performed in here. And then number two is for the giant arch shape here. And with the arch, it was formed naturally millions of years ago due to slightly acidic water being down here. And with the acidic water, it did find some cracks in the walls and ceilings and follow them up and create formations known as ancient waterways. And the biggest one in this cavity can be found right here above our heads. Alright guys, so if you look over here on either sides of the trail, you're going to find two more ancient waterways that we also call floor drains. These two ancient waterways here actually go down to the main water tables, which are estimated to be about 2,500 feet below us. And this is available to where you guys can stay overnight in our hole in the middle of nowhere. And this does come fully equipped. So it has two queen-size beds here. There's also the couch right here in the middle that does fold down into a third bed. There's also the TV, but since we are underground, there's obviously no cable, direct TV, or running Wi-Fi. So in place of all of that, we brought down a DVD player and some movies to watch. But of course, two of the movies brought down are some company favorites, which are The Cave and The Descent. And these are two horror movies about creatures eating people in a cavern underground. And they are really great to watch in the dark too. But then right here behind the saloon doors, there is a fully functional bathroom. So there's a shower there with hot and cold running water. And there's also a flushable toilet in there just in case it's needed. But we also offer our guard dog Rocky here, just in case you get scared, lonely, or bored while staying down here. But even he gets bored, so he has his best friend Paul. He's an alien here in the ceiling. He's even waving to us. Hi, Paul. But we do have him down here in the cavern itself because we want to show people how well things stay preserved in here. And we have a high preservation level due to the low temperature, low humidity, and because of there not being water. So naturally, nothing will rust the metals, rot the wood, and these flowers keep their color. Which you will see in this bouquet right here, because this one is actually 19 years old. Was left up there in the year 2000, but there is still some red tint in the flower and green tint in the leaves. Plus, if you look at all of us tour guides over here, we're really all over 100 years old. Cavern just makes us look good. It's like we found the fountain of youth just without the water, which is also our luck. Our president, John F. Kennedy, had actually declared this cavern here a fallout shelter for the surrounding 65 miles. But we do have a max occupancy up to 2,000 people. But when they did declare this one, they brought down the boxes of food here, which do hold crackers and carbohydrate supplements that are in the form of rock candies. They also brought down over 100 barrels of water, and each barrel here does contain about 17.5 gallons worth of water. And they also brought down these medical and sanitation kits. But back then, they did only plan to house that 2,000 people for about 2.5 weeks. But then later in 2011, we did extend the time length, and we did that by bringing down all of the water bottles here. And there's actually over 150 cases of them that were brought down. And then we also brought down more food. And those are these boxes of MREs, meals ready to eat, or meals rejected by everyone. And then in the display case over here, you will find pieces from the medical kit, the sanitation kit, and those boxes of food here at the end. Alright, and I want your heads on the big rock right here as we enter Snowball Palace. They're really great for the elementary school groups, because if any of the kids have touched my walls, I tell them that's what happens when they continue to. You guys want to guess his name? Oh, dang it. There was no hesitation there. Alright, and as you pass the corner here, if you look on the left-hand side, you'll be able to see all of the materials that were really brought down here. It's a whole new perspective from in front of that display case. This here is actually the highest ancient waterway that we have. This one here is known as Mammoth Dome because of its height. This one here actually stretches 142 feet from the trail to the very top of it. And right now we are standing behind the building in the employee parking lot. But as to exactly where in the parking lot, nobody's 100% sure, because nobody wants to drill 65 to 70 feet through the top of this in order to find out. How'd you guys like that hill? Easier than the last two?
Not too bad.
For the one sole purpose of dropping down the wet cement for our walkways. So what would happen is they would mix it all on the surface. They would drop it through the hole here while it was still wet. It would fall down into the wooden box, get shoveled out, put in the wheelbarrow, and all of these walkways here were wheelbarrowed out. This construction process did actually take 4 years to complete, and it was done in between 1958 and 1962. And it was done by the Rigsby brothers, or who we now know as Yellow Freight Trucking Company, from the scaffolding of the Hoover Dam. So after their completion back in 1936, the Civil Conservation Corps were still trying to find some extra jobs for people, and they heard that we were tired of lowering everyone down here on a rope, hence the dope on a rope mannequin out front. So they had a group of gents come down here and build us the bridge. And the bridge does lead to about 3 to 4 wooden staircases that do connect to the natural entrance, but that natural entrance is sealed off. And that's just because we don't want any more critters to come down here and wind up mummifying themselves like Bob did. Well then guys, I would like everyone to meet Gertie. She's our ancient ground sloth. This species of sloth right here was actually around during the time of our last ice age about 20,000 years ago. And at just a year old, they did stand about 15.4 feet tall and weighed 1 ton. Gertie here had actually fallen through the natural entrance just like Bob had, but unlike Bob in trying to head towards the mystery room, she tried to claw her way back out. And she left us the claw marks here in the wall. Well, we do know that those are hers for a fact because we also found a piece of her claw embedded in that wall. And we pulled it out and put it on display on the surface for you guys to see today. But the biggest indication of her being down here is that while they were clearing out the area here for the 104-foot staircase, we did wind up finding about 94 to 95% of her bones just laying around. But when we found them, since we didn't know exactly what they were, since they were scattered, we went ahead and gathered them all up, sent them down to the University of Arizona in Tucson, and had them analyzed. And since they were really awesome about getting us the results back and we didn't need the remains anymore, we went ahead and offered them a trade. And the trade was that they could have the remains to keep on display and for any further research, just as long as they built us a replica to keep on display here. So this is the actual replica that they built us. And they did do really well on it, except they probably could have left her tongue in her mouth. It does add to her character, but you should see some of the questions I get asked sometimes. Also, with the handrails here, if you guys are on the taller side, about 5'9" or taller, be careful using them, because when they were installed, the tallest person was only between 5'5" to 5'6". So nobody taller than that was kept in mind. But alright guys, so all of the chairs that we do have right here on the stage were actually bought back in 2012 from the American Film Institute Theater in Hollywood, California. The reasoning why we did buy them is because we were going to have concert and movie showings down here, but when we did start advertising for the space to be rented, we got a call from the Arizona government telling us we weren't actually allowed to. The reasoning is because since we do only have one way in and out, the actual law actually requires that we do have two separate ways in and out for safety reasons. So now we do have the chairs down here just for the weddings and ghost walks, but mostly because we want to keep them preserved, being as how they did hold any great actors, actresses, writers, producers, and directors, all from 1950 up into 2012 to sit and watch their very own movies. So if you want to pay for it, then you can go ahead.
How much is it?
Well, for the first two people, it is $900. But it holds up to a total of 6, and it's an additional $100 per person up to that final total.
Yep, that's expensive.
You also have a suite attendant who sleeps up on the surface, so basically one of us tour guides. So we're up on the surface all night just in case they need anything throughout the night. So they even have a phone in between the two beds that does call up to the surface. So, all right guys, so we do offer a ghost walk here. We turn off all of the lights down here in the cavern. We equip you guys with a flashlight, an EMF reader, and you go around with one of us tour guides, and we do help you hunt for ghosts. That tour time does last about 10 minutes to an hour. The limit is all just dependent on how active the spirits are that night. Because there are some nights where we have constant activity from the minute we walk out of the elevator, and other nights where we have absolutely no activity happen. So it just really depends on how the night's going to go. So this is that one that we couldn't see from over there at the beginning of our tour. How many of you guys remembered about it?
I did.
Did you remember it before or after I said something?
After.
Haha, the truth comes out. And then right over here above our last man-made tunnel is going to be our caverns grotto. And this is actually a dining platform to where you guys can come down here and eat lunch or dinner in our cave. When this idea here was being cooked up, we were trying to figure out where it was going to be placed, and then somebody actually came up with the idea of putting it over the last man-made tunnel. That way, while people are up there eating, they can either say goodbye to those who are leaving the cavern, or they can say hello to those who are entering the cavern. But one of our owners, Mike, is actually the visionary behind this and the suite, and when he came up with the grotto idea, the suite was doing really well, so everyone figured the grotto will too. But within the first week of taking reservations, it actually blew our minds, because within that first week, we did have about 150 to 200 reservations made. And this was done back in 2017, yet we did have reservations made for 2 years in advance. So they were actually made for this year. So it's pretty cool that we finally get to respect them. But if you guys would like, you can look up to the hole there and to the left, and you'll actually see the emergency staircase that we would have to take in case the elevator here was being temperamental. That staircase there is also recycled. It's from an old fire escape in New York City. Well, at least we recycle stuff before it was cool. And if you guys would like, you can look up through the crack of the elevator and see how far down we really came.
Yeah. All right, so we got ourselves signed up for the lunch grotto for Thursday because we just ate breakfast like an hour or two ago. So we're not really feeling it today, but we'll be coming back by on Thursday. So, seems perfect.
No,
They'll
yeah.
go.
They'll probably put it in loss of famine if it's not clean.
Well, when you get to where it's over, it's fine.
Yeah,
In Peach Springs, we should have covered where we got gas yesterday.
Yeah.
we'll stop.
We stopped there.
You guys definitely have the setup. Those guys on the bikes right there, they're from Canada. We did the tour with them. They seem pretty cool, but they trailered their bikes down to Albuquerque and they rode over here. So it's pretty cool. So we are done with the cavern stuff. The basic tour, it was fine. No issues with it at all. They do offer 2 other ones. I can't remember if I mentioned this or not, but they have one that's like the Explorer Tour, and it's like $80 per person, and then they have another one that explores new areas where they're still mapping out different caverns and caves and different tunnels and whatever, and that's like $100 per person. The one that we did, if you just do the tour by itself, it's $20 per person, so it's pretty easy on the budget. We did sign up for the grotto, but we're going to do that on Thursday on the way back. Today's Tuesday, by the way. I originally looked at the room, like the suite that you can stay at, so that me and Sarah could stay there, until I realized that for 2 people, it is $900 per night. That's definitely not in this budget.